Energy has been a hot topic in all the headlines internationally. There's no way around it. We've heard about some catastrophic things, especially when you're talking Europe. But in New Hampshire specifically, we've also had a lot of issues when it comes to energy pricing and where we get energy from. And I was excited to have the opportunity today to speak to Mike Giaimo. He's the Regional Director for Northeast American Petroleum Institute. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
So, to kick off with, at a high level, what is the American Petroleum Institute, also referred to as API, and what do they represent, what do they do? And it's important, generally speaking, for people to know where does the funding come from, so people know maybe your interests you may have.
No, 100%. Thanks. That's, again, thanks for having me. So API, the American Petroleum Institute, is the National Trade Association for the oil and gas industry. So we represent all segments of America's gas and oil industry that supports about 11 million U.S. jobs. We were created about 105 years ago as an organization that set up standards, and we still have that role. We set up safety and operational standards for the oil industry. We have about 600 members. Our members produce, process, and distribute the fuels which I mentioned. They're in all three elements of the industry: upstream, midstream, and downstream. So the upstream you can think of as the extraction of the fuels. The midstream is the transportation, and the downstream is the refinement and making the final product. So again, our 600 members go from the well to the wheel, if you will, of the life cycle of oil. So hopefully that provides some background, and we can go from there.
Yeah, definitely. And you actually have ties specifically to New Hampshire's energy management with your time as the commissioner of the New Hampshire Public Utilities Commission. It must have helped you be informed going into the private sector with regards to this.
Yeah, I have I guess I would have what I consider a pretty unique background. I actually started my career at the Business and Industry Association, the BIA, the State Chamber of Commerce. So I spent 8 years there. Then I went to work in the External Affairs group at ISO New England, the group that runs the bulk power system and runs the wholesale electricity markets, right? And then from there, I went to the New Hampshire PUC, spent 4 years there, and then took the position here at API. So I've seen it from both the private sector, the public sector, from a trade organization, kind of have some unique perspectives. So hopefully I can provide those right now. But so with respect to what I've seen from the private sector, I think first and foremost, what I've learned is they need certainty, right? They need to know things can't be yo-yoing back and forth. Regulations need to be known in advance. Our industry, it takes 5 to 7 years, right, to explore, to sink a well, to find out if that well has potential, is potentially economically viable. Then you need infrastructure to extract it. Then you need to get it to market, and then that lasts for 20, 30, that can last for 20, 30 years, right? So these are expensive, long-lived assets. Changing things, yo-yoing back and forth is really bad policy for our members.
Yeah, we're seeing gas prices skyrocket. People are like assuming it really seems like the metaphor of the jet ski turning versus the oil tanker turning. Like, it's not something that turns on a dime. It's something that takes an extremely long amount of time. You got permitting at the federal level, the state level, the local municipality level, transportation, and all the mechanics that come with that. And the refinery, people always could totally forget about, which is
right.
Very reliant, which we've had issues over the previous couple decades with flooding down in the Gulf of Mexico region and such, because there were so many refineries down there previously that were experiencing issues. Like, this is something that takes time, and definitely consistency and long-term thinking is very important.
Yeah, and the number of refineries particularly in the Northeast, has decreased significantly over the years. So we are becoming more and more reliant on the existing infrastructure at the existing refineries, and they produced very well. We saw record production As I think I may have mentioned earlier, right? We've seen both natural gas and oil production increase approximately 5% over in 2023. And again, that's a lot of it's a result of a lot of hard work and a lot of earlier investments that are now coming to fruition. So just thought it's important to note that.
So the mainstream narrative around energy has definitely been focused on renewables first and foremost. Nothing else matters. We got the blinders on, and this is all we're focused on. Meanwhile, that's definitely not how it works in the day to day. Like we live in, I'm in New England here. I mean, how important to you do you think it is to have a diversified portfolio of energy creation and utilization in the United States, especially when you're talking more of the region?
It might be the most important thing that we do, right? I think there are a few things as important as a diversified portfolio. From a consumer perspective, I'd submit to you that there are two really things that are important. It's reliable service, right? You want to flick that light switch and make sure it's there, and you don't care if it's raining, if it's minus 12 or 112 degrees. You want to be cool and warm at the appropriate time. And the other thing is cost, right? And I think without fail, both of those things are contingent on having a diverse portfolio. I'll give an analogy that everyone here in the Northeast should understand, and hopefully it works, right? I guess I'd liken the regional energy portfolio to our own home energy portfolio, right? Homes with multiple energy sources, they have the greatest amount of reliability. Houses with backup generation, alternative heating sources, battery backups, solar on their roof, and a wood pile out back, right? They're the ones that are ready for the nor'easter and the storm and what other else Mother Nature may throw at us. And the same is true with the regional power system, right? You want a diverse portfolio. You need solar, you want wind, you want natural gas, you want nuclear, you want imports, so that if any one of those things isn't available, the other thing can step up. So I think you had your finger at the pulse there of what really is important. It is a reliable system, and the reliability really comes from diversification.
Do we see this diversification with the companies that your organization represents? Like, how do they make sure that they're staying ahead of the curve with regulations that are all over the place, obviously, that are pushing back on a lot of the fossil fuel industry? But what are some ways they're trying to be innovative?
Yeah, so our companies have always looked for market opportunities. A lot of our members were at the first wave of the offshore wind industry here in the Northeast, right? And they're continually looking to improve their products and see what policies are pushing what, right? So there's a lot of money and resources going into renewable natural gas, the utilization of hydrogen, carbon capture and sequestration. In certain areas, they're looking at pipelines to transport carbon so that it can be stored in a reliable manner as well. So they respond to the market and they're doing a good job at that.
Now, there's been a lot of news in recent months about the move towards community energy, and some places in New Hampshire have been starting to go in that direction. Is that something the organization views as beneficial to Granite Staters?
So we don't have a specific per se position on community energy. What I would say is API, strongly believes in consumer choice, and particularly with respect to mandates. There are moves afoot to mandate electric vehicles and to mandate electric heating, and API doesn't think that's a good approach. And so you're probably scratching your head. Well, what does that have to do with consumer with community energy? Well, community energy is a choice. The consumer has the ability to stay with its traditional utility and utilize default service, or as a community, they can look for additional products that may fit them better, right? So, I think I would just say that with respect to third-party purchases from the energy market and the utilization of aggregations and competitive suppliers, API thinks that's just another tool that the consumer should have in finding whatever is the best product that fits their needs.
New England's heavily reliant on natural gas, something that really came to light, especially with prices going up over the last few years and changes when it came to fracking regulation and things like that. What work is API doing in this space to make sure it's a reliable and clean energy source for the future?
So I touched a little bit just a second ago about sort of the advanced technologies that our members are looking for, right? The renewable natural gas, hydrogen, carbon capture, other technologies. And, the federal government has actually has been signaling and is putting in incentives for some of those technologies as well. So, that's actually certainly a good thing. I think anytime you talk about New England and natural gas, you have to talk about the fact that we have five interstate pipelines that serve the region. These are the same five pipelines that have been serving the region since the 90s. So while demand for natural gas has grown and grown significantly, and as the amount of gas has increased with the Marcellus Shale and Utica shales and other explorations, those additional finds of gas, we in the Northeast haven't seen the commensurate benefit that some of the other regions have because we have limited constraints on our pipeline. So, what does that result in? That results in price spikes in the winter when people are demanding natural gas for heat and there are other constraints, right? So, unfortunately, there aren't a lot of indications that people want to build pipelines in the Northeast, but that would be certainly a good solution that could help increase supply, and then we would see economic and reliability benefits as well.
Yeah, it seems like many, especially on the left, view we're going to cause the catastrophe or the huge down the line issues in order to force the hand of renewables. When I personally, I don't think the technology is there yet. We obviously have huge issues when it comes to importing all the elements that are required to make these technologies, when right now we need to make sure, with all the inflation we're dealing with in the States, that we have the poorest among us are able to get their gas in their car in a way they can afford, get the heat that they need through whatever means necessary,
Yeah.
and not have to revert to there are people in my family that have had to revert to burning wood because of the restrictions that have been put in place.
Yeah, and I guess the other addition I agree with everything you said. The one addition I might say is, what people forget, particularly about natural gas, is it actually has the ability to complement wind and solar very well. Natural gas is at some of these highly effective, highly efficient new natural gas plants. It's basically, it provides the ability to ramp up those units up and down. So, as a cloud covers come and the wind stops blowing, you can ramp up the output at these natural gas units. And then when the clouds leave, right, and the wind starts blowing again, you can take your foot off the proverbial accelerator and reduce the output at the units. So, in many ways, I think policymakers need to understand and appreciate that, coupled with batteries, these natural gas is among the best ways to effectuate your renewable objectives.
Yeah, and an example of part of the country that's trying to jump the gun. I mean, look at what California's been dealing with their brownouts are not available during the hottest months out of the year. They're telling people to turn off their air conditioners, which is deadly to the elderly. It's downright dangerous to tell people to do that when it's 100+ degrees outside.
And then the irony of them requiring everyone to convert to electric vehicles in the same breath. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's an irony there.
All right, so there's an abundance of policies and issues on the American Petroleum Institute website, which makes a ton of sense when you consider how complex energy is. We've discussed some of that today. I mean, this includes everything from national security, cybersecurity, physical infrastructure, R&D into new technologies, international and domestic trade, etc. There's a ton of things. So, I mean, at the state level, we're right now busy over at the Gold Dome here in Concord. What are some things you think lawmakers should focus on for the next year or two?
Yeah, I'll talk regionally. Maybe it's because I
Regional director.
I was regional director. I'll talk regional. That's right. Well, um, what we see in a lot of states are moves, right, and from lawmakers to require, all new buildings be have electric heat by 2027, 2028. Have all vehicles need to be electric vehicles for sale in the state by 2035. We see that in a lot of the states in the Northeast, and that's really a, what we think is a bad policy, and for a bunch of reasons. And I guess to the extent that the people from from the 400 reps and 24 senators hear this, when you make your policy decisions, keep this in mind that electrification mandates take away consumer choice. We kind of went over that ad nauseum, if you will. It could be costly, right? For cars, there's a premium for EV cars, and I think replacing an existing heating system with a new heating system is expensive and often cost prohibitive. And third, we have a grid that's aging, right? There was actually a report that came out just in the past week from ISO New England that estimates that in order to meet the load growth, one of the scenarios is we need to invest $25 billion in new transmission. That's just transmission. That's not the distribution system. So, I would just say that as each state makes its policy decisions and contemplates laws, think about the implication on the power system, the costs, and the amount of infrastructure needed, and don't exacerbate the problem. Don't do anything that's going to turn power plants off prematurely, right? Until you know that there won't be reliability issues. Make sure that the policies don't exacerbate the challenges and the infrastructure challenges we have. So I guess those are my quick thoughts on recommendations.
Mike Giaimo, Regional Director for Northeast at API. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's a really interesting conversation.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a great one.
NewEnglandTake.com to get more from the show. Like and subscribe. New episodes every week. NewEnglandTake.com. You can find all the links to our social medias, including Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Please subscribe. Talk to you soon.